Chapter 6 quiz here on the 11th. We are basically coming to the end of the chapter. Um, I will not have this on the video. So you probably have realized that there are two versions of the linear equation so far that we've learned. Today we're going to learn the third and last, okay? But they're all connected. You can literally say, hey, look at this equation, write it in slope intercept or write it in slope point. Like, it doesn't matter which format, both are talking about the exact same line. It's kind of like how we look like during the week, and when we go somewhere to a party or something, we look a little better, right? We take care of ourselves. Same thing, right? It's just a different look to it, but really the same thing. So if you're given, so I'm just going to give you a few scenarios, right? To write an equation, this is optional. You don't have to write this down, but I'll do it. To write an equation, right, we need the slope. You need to have the slope for sure. And another point. You need the slope and you need a point, right? If that particular point happens to be the slope, if you have the slope and the y-intercept, right, then you have m and b technically. You write it like this: y is equal to mx plus b. That's the slope intercept form, right? If you find out that that point that you're given is just slope plus a random point, like it's not zero, right? The y-intercept is always going to be 0 and a number, right? That's how you recognize that that point that you're given is a y-intercept. It starts with a 0 because x is equal to 0 at that point and a number. If you're given the slope and a random point, so slope and xy, right? We're going to use this one, y minus y1, and then slope is going to be x minus x1. Okay? So that's how you determine which one. If you're not specifically stated, if it's not stated you want it in this format or that format, you automatically are going to decide which path to go. And then to graph, this is the kicker, to graph this, I'm going to turn off the front row lights. And now, if you came up with them, to graph this or to graph this, you go about it the following way, right? Start with y-intercept, right? Use slope to find new points. In this case here, you start with point. It's just point, not the y-intercept in particular, just a random point that you can extract from the graph, and then use slope to find new points. Okay, so the idea is the same, except for here you're going to start right on the y-axis. Here you're going to start on the point that is given to you by that equation. Okay, but in essence, the way you construct the line is the same. So in this, I'm just going to give you a visual here. right? You may start up here, and then you're going to go either down and over to get your another point, right? Down and over to get the other point. And then you have enough to graph, right? Use a straight edge on a test, right? Right now you're just doing notes. Or you could be starting here, and let's say it's a 1/5 slope, right? 1, 5, 1, 5. It should be consistent, right? Then you have 3 points, you graph it, and there's your line. Okay, this one will have a negative slope, and this one will have a positive slope. In this scenario here, make sure you don't start on the y-axis, right? You're going to start wherever the point may be. Let's say it's here, and then you go from there, right? Let's say a 2, 5 slope, 2 up, 5, 2 up, 5. I know this is tough to copy because it's basically just I'm making this up as I go. It's not as organized as you would like it to be, but you start here. And on this one, you start by the y-axis, right? Here you start there. So this would have, because it's going up from left to right, the slope is positive. And let's say you have a point that's up here. And let's do a slope of -3/1. So that's -3, 1, -3, 1. Oh, you're almost touching the y-axis, but not quite. Okay. And I have 4 points here, so it makes it a bit more challenging to graph, free-handed at least. This slope will be negative. So we went from information given to equation. Let me zoom out a bit. We went from information given to equation to graph. But the reality is you can also go from graph to equation to actually tell me what's what, like what's the slope and what's the point that it goes through. Okay, so it goes both ways, right? And it also goes from here to there, like you can go back and forth if you wanted to. So if you need to copy that, go ahead, booklets. General form of the equation, the third type. And I think at the top, I'm going to write it down so it sticks out. I don't know why they use capitals, but they do. So I would write that at the top so you relate, right, general form to this. And it will show up again further down. So the focus today is to get everything looking like the general form of the equation. Okay? We can write an equation in different forms. An equation for this graph in particular on the side is 5x minus 2y minus 10 is equal to 0. We can write this equation in slope-intercept form. Okay. I would want to add, you can also write it in slope-point form if you wanted to. They're all possible, right? So what I would like you to do is we'll rewrite this one algebraically without a graph, okay? And then we're going to go to the graph and see if we could come up with the same equation just by looking at the graph, which is the preferred method, right? If you have a graph, go by the graph, okay? So let's do this first. So you want this in slope-intercept form, which you should recognize is y is equal to mx plus b. You should recognize that this is in general form, right? So from general to slope-intercept, that's what we're after. So basically, isolate y. Solve for y, isolate y, same thing. So taking this, I will bring the 5x and the 10 over on the other side of the equal sign. And when that happens, you change the sign of the term, okay? So minus 2y is equal to negative 5x plus 10. And the 0 obviously is gone now because you have stuff there, right? And then your last step would be dividing everything by negative 2. So cancel that out. Y is equal to. This affects both terms. Don't forget that, right? So it'd be 5 over 2x plus, minus 5. Okay, Dana, take your booklet and go to this section, okay? So from this, we know that our slope is, right, this is what we want, right? Our slope in this case would be 5 over 2, and the y-intercept, which is also referred to as b in this particular format, would be negative 5, which you should recognize as 0, negative 5, okay? So terms are thrown around. Y-intercept is b, which is, right, if you want to just say b is equal to negative 5, that's fine, but you should also know that it represents this particular point right here. It's a point on the graph, okay? I'm going to break this down here. So kind of saying, we did that now, we're going to go to the graph, okay? And I don't like this graph because it should have arrowheads. Okay, so don't forget that. It has x and y. Maybe check what the scale is, okay? So I'm checking 1, 2, 3, 4, scale of 1 everywhere, so we're good. Don't always assume it's going to be a scale of 1, okay? Look at the values. Write an equation in different forms, okay? So we're going to go, slope is rise over run. And in this particular case, they kind of, if they give you points, folks, use them. Use those points that are already kind of sticking out, right? So this one is a vertical change. We go up to that point and then over, okay? And a vertical change of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a horizontal, a run of 2, okay? So we know that, first of all, our slope is going to be positive because it's going up from left to right. And it's going to be a rise of 5. Some of you were flipping it on that AC homework. You were flipping it. You were, I saw it. I know you're on the right track, but you were not. You were flipping the rise and the run. You were saying run over rise. Okay, it's got to be rise over run. So we've got our slope, and our y-intercept, which is given, is negative 5. So now we can write it 5 over 2x. Don't forget your x and don't forget your y equals. Okay, a lot of you were forgetting your y equals on that homework. You were just going, right? You were just filling in the right hand side. No, you need to make sure you have y equals. That's why you lost marks there. And voila, it looks the same. That's about as much French as I can do, folks. Both sides are the same, okay? And that's what I want you to see, the connectivity. Everything is connected one way or the other. They're all the same. I know this is, I really wish I would have taken the time to give ourselves more room, but could you have written this in slope point form? The answer is yes, right? You should all be like, yeah, yeah, I could have. Why didn't I? Because the point, I knew my y-intercept, so I'm just like, you know what, this is easier, right? This is just easier to just state it that way. Do you think we can fit that in here? Maybe, let me see my original. Yeah, I saved some room here, so you can also write it in slope point form. So we did it this way because we had the graph, but we also just took the general form that we were given and rewrote it. Hey, it's like the same thing. Okay. So Mr. Dirksen, was this then talking about the same line? Yep, because you just shown it, right? And so we would go pick a point, and we're not going to pick the y-intercept. Okay, we're going to pick this point right here, which happens to be the x-intercept. This is 2, 0. So remember, it's y minus y1, which is 0, is equal to the slope we already determined, right? It's 5/2. And then it's x minus x1, which is that one. And this really just turns out to be y is equal to 5/2 x minus 2. Did I tell you I love that? Hold it. I'm really bad at going off on a tangent. Could you write an equation of a line that would be perpendicular to this? You could, right? You would just focus on the slope. But I won't fill that in right now because it would be way too much. Right now we just want to focus on that. But you could have taken the negative reciprocal of this, and voila, you have a perpendicular line to the one you have. Okay, I want you to highlight this, the general form, right? So actually this whole block here. But the general form looks like this. And watch what it says. A, B, and C are integers, and A is positive. That's what a lot of students miss. If you want to score 100% on writing something in general form, this right here is saying no fractions or decimals. That's what that is saying. So we're going to make sure we clean it up so that we get rid of all decimals and all fractions. And this goes without saying. A has to be positive, right? That goes without saying. So I'm not going to add anything to that. Okay. So we're going to write each one of these in general form. Let's practice. What form is this? This is slope intercept. What form is this? This is slope intercept. So we can, by observation, both are in the slope intercept, sorry. Okay, both are slope intercept, both of these that we're asked to rewrite. So we're going from slope intercept to general. That's what's happening here. That's what this line is for. Okay. So just from this, we want to bring basically everything over to the left side. So the 3x comes over, and notice that the x is always leading the way, right? That's what we want up front. So it's 3x plus y, because y is already there, no sign change, minus 5, because the 5 comes over subtracting, is equal to 0. And then this would be a. This value in front of y is b. So b is equal to plus 3. Sorry, a is equal to plus 3, b is equal to plus 1, and c is equal to negative 5. So all three are there. How do you know which one is a? It's the one that's in front of x, and it needs to be up front. And then you have to have your y term, and then you have to have a negative, the constant we call it, at the end. A is positive and not a fraction, so we're good. So this is it. Okay, so 3x plus y minus 5. One more time. That's really what you want, because it could be that we would have had to clean it up a little bit. Okay, so we're done there. Same thing here. First things, you move everything over to the left. Okay, so this turns into 1/2 x plus y, because the y is already there. The 3 comes over the equal sign, subtracting, and that is equal to 0. So we have A, B, C in that order. That's good, but we don't want negatives or fractions. So how do you take care of this? You take this whole side and you will be multiplying it by 2. And then you take this whole side on the other side and multiply it by 2 as well. And you should know that 0 times a number is just 0, right? So on the right side, I'll write it down right away. That's just 0. And then here, you distribute, right? So you have to distribute. That gives you x plus 2y minus 6. Okay, and now you're done. A is positive. A, comma B, comma C are integers. That's what you want to check for. Right? A is positive, and A, B, and C are integers, so no fractions. Okay. I'll stop for a bit. Oh, I actually took the time. Where's my sticky note? I found, yeah. After this question, I'll give you some questions in the textbook that deal directly with this, like both of these that we're doing here. So I will do this one first and then. Okay, now write this equation in general form. So you should recognize, yeah, that's what I want. And you're given this. What form is this? This is slope, point, and this is again by observation. You should be able to observe just the format of it and be like, yep, this is slope point, right? Got a slope and a point that is not the y-intercept. And so we're going to go from slope point to general. That's what we're doing here. Okay. So there's various ways of doing this. I will write this out again just so you see it. Y plus 5 is equal to 2/3 x minus 4. That's in brackets. I will remove that 3, this fraction, I will get rid of it right away, the 3. And you should have seen me do this already. Okay, so times 3, and I'll take the whole left side and multiply that by 3 also. And that allows me to cancel these two out. It's 1 basically. It's not like it's gone, but 3 divided by 3 is 1, right? And then you distribute. So this is 3y plus 15 is equal to, you distribute as well, 2x minus 8, just like that. That would be, if I see a fraction, get rid of it, right? Remove it right away. Multiply both sides by the denominator, and then you're good to go. Okay, now you have a one-liner, and now it's just bringing everything over to the left-hand side. So the 2x comes over negative. The 3y is already there. Don't change its sign. Okay. The 15 is already there. Don't change its sign. Bring the 8 over to the other side. Is equal to 0. If you have a highlighter, I will highlight the negative here, and I will highlight the positive there, because right, you need to make sure you see that the sign has changed as it came over to the left side. And I feel like sometimes I hope that makes sense. If you learn subtract 2x on both sides, right, you're going to end up with a negative 2x on the left-hand side, because it's going to cancel out with that one, right? If you learned add 8 to both sides, that's really what you're doing, okay? So you don't have to think that that's wrong. Keep doing it, but just make sure you are able to get from one line to the other. And so let's clean it up one more time. 15 and 8, that's 23. That's equal to 0. And here you decide what you want to do, okay? You want to multiply everything by negative 1 or divide everything by negative 1. It's up to you. I will divide everything by negative 1. Because we don't want a to be negative. That's why we're doing this. And divide 0 by negative 1 as well. So just 2x minus 3y minus 23 is equal to 0. Because 0 divided by anything is still just 0. Okay. And that's what you want. I will make a note. We divide by negative 1 to have a positive a value. That's why we're doing that. Now, my sticky note. If you want specifically, like for these two questions that we just did, if you want to practice these two skills, this is where you would find it in the textbook. So it's basically question mark to general form, right? It could be slope point or slope intercept, doesn't matter. Both of these have at least 8 questions, so you can practice doing that and see if you get it. And I appreciate in math that there's different ways to get to the same answer. So I'm not too strict with, like, if you didn't do it my way, you're going to lose marks. You might have teachers next year that are very much like, no, you have to follow this exact same way. But as long as you get to this and it's mathematically sound, it's correct. Okay, it's fine. Right? For example, some of you may not have chosen to get rid of this 3. You will just take 2/3 and distribute it, and then just work with fractions throughout the whole thing. You can do that, but eventually you're going to have to get rid of it anyways, right? Okay, backside. Finding the slope. Finding the slope here when it's in general form. Backside of this booklet or of the page we just started. So let's imagine we didn't just read this title. This shows up on a test like that. Yeah. Find the slope of the equation. You're like, I don't know. Well, you need to always go back and say, what form are we in to begin with? This is ax plus by. Mr. Dirksen, it says -3. Don't worry about it. That's in general what it looks like. Right? Plus c is equal to 0. So general form. Okay. And so my strategy is change or rewrite to slope intercept. That's a very popular. This were a restaurant, a mathematical restaurant, it's a popular order. Take this and turn it into slope intercept. That's a very popular order. Okay, so popular question. So we're going to take this and turn it into slope intercept because guess what? The slope is going to be in there. That's why we're doing that. So we're going to go -3y is equal to, you take the 4x, you bring it over, it goes negative. You take the -12, you bring it over the equal sign, it turns positive. Then you subtract both sides by that -3 because you want to isolate. And you end up with y is equal to 4/3. 12 divided by -3. Oh, I forgot my x here. Don't forget it. 12 divided by -3 is -4. This is your slope. This is b, which is my y-intercept. They don't ask for it, but let's keep repeating and make sure we don't forget, right? So therefore, slope is 4/3. Shortcut. Don't we like shortcuts, right? Control C, Control V, right? Shortcut for slope in general form. This only works if it's in general form, okay? And you will take m, and you will say state slope is equal to negative whatever a is divided by b. That's how you come up with it quickly without having to do this. If it's only asking you for the slope, you can actually quickly do it this way. But if you forget, this is a fail-safe method of getting there. So let's try this. We should get 4/3. You go back to the original, you grab a. A is 4, so you don't have to worry about a double negative. Over. How about we do brackets? Because we technically substitute the value of a into here. Could have been negative, in this case it isn't. And think about it, general form should not have a negative a value, but just in case. B is -3. So you plug the -3 like that. Now let's get rid of the brackets because we don't really need them. So you end up with, this is a positive 4/3 slope, which is exactly what we wanted in the beginning. Okay, so this is a shortcut to get there. So if I just ask you quickly, state the slope, no problem, right? One more question like that. Find the slope of the line with the equation 6x plus 4y minus 5. Shortcut. I'm going to do it both ways, okay? Shortcut. M is equal to negative a over b. We're going to take a, that's negative 6, and we're going to take b, which is 4, and we reduce it. 2 goes in here 3 times. 2 goes in there 2 times, so it's negative 3 over 2. M is negative 3 over 2, according to this. So let's say a test says, well, now double check by rewriting this into slope-intercept form. Write into y is equal to mx plus b. So we take the 4y equals, right, this equal sign, and then we bring the 6x over, it goes negative 6x. The 5 comes over positive. Divide both sides by 4. Y is equal to negative 6 over 4x plus 5 over 4. We'll leave it like that. This reduces, right? 3 over 2. So y is equal to negative 3 over 2x plus 5 over 4. Slope is negative 3 over 2 as we predicted here. Okay. I think this is going to be it for today, and then I'm going to get you to just do the homework. If you don't have your textbooks, I'm going to put the textbook under here, and you can just look at it on the screen. Okay. Find the x and y intercepts. There it is again, right? Don't forget that it's always there. Of the line 2x plus y minus 6 is equal to 0. So we know this is in standard form. You should be able to find the intercepts no matter which form I give you, right? The steps are essentially the same. So for A, to get the x-intercept, you let y equal to 0. So it's the opposite. If you want x-intercept, let y equal to 0. If you want the y-intercept, let x equal to 0, right? So let's go ahead. So that would be 2x plus 0 minus 6 is equal to 0. You end up with 2x. Sorry, am I looking at the right one? Yeah, okay. 2x minus 6 is equal to 0. 2x is equal to 6 because 6 comes over positive. Divide both sides by 2. X is equal to 3, and it's 3, 0. I always like you to state it like that at the end. Just re-emphasizes the fact that, right, we're there. The y-intercept is done next, and that's when x is equal to 0. It's almost like a T-chart. So that's 2 times 0 plus y minus 6 is equal to 0. This turns into 0, so you just with y minus 6 is equal to 0. The 6 comes over. as positive 6, so it's 0, 6. And in fact, if you want to graph something, finding the intercepts and just connecting the two is just fine. So we're going to graph this here. So 3, 0 is right there. 0, 6 is right up here. And we will just connect it using a straight edge. You know what? That makes me think of one issue that will arise with when testing this is your grids. You're not going to have grids. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a page or two with small grids on it. You can cut it if you want and paste it, or just do it on there. I would prefer if you cut it, actually cut, I know it's old school, cut it and just tape it onto your work. That way I can just mark through it and I see it, okay? So you make sure you label, if you want full marks, okay, the details, right? The arrowheads, the equation. I would always put it on one end. I wouldn't put it right in the middle because later on when we do systems, it's going to be in the way. So I always say, hey, put it at the end. And that's your graph right there. If you have to do this at home, make sure you label your X and your Y axis, right? And use a straight edge, right? You're you're not writing it on Friday, right? It's your group 3, okay. So I have a bunch of sheets there I'm going to give you to take already, maybe even for homework, so you can do your homework. I was going to do the mystery lines, but I think we're good for tomorrow, Monday. So here's the homework. Mystery lines is just, we're going to kind of see, hey, what are you given? And now you're supposed to rewrite it. And so we come up with the line that they're trying to refer to. So we are on page 384. We're going to go from 4 to 10, 12 to 14. Huh? That doesn't make sense. Okay, anyway, 16. I think it's yeah, I think it's 18. I wrote down 8 last semester. It's 18, 22, and 23. Um, again, if you're I know other subjects are weighing on you, okay? Try to do, like when it's question 4, if it's A, B, C, D, try to do A and D or something, right? Like kind of scan through them so you have an idea of where we're going. Ideally, you do them all, right? If you want to strive, if you want to do very good, you want to do them all. So